Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard after she wrote an article that he said affected his career. He was ultimately awarded a large sum of money in 2022. What we're going to be looking at today is Johnny Depp's behavior on the stand. We're going to be looking at his behavior and his body language. We've got another video coming up where we're going to be looking at what the psychologists have to say and Amber Heard's testimony. Before we get started, I do want to remind you of a couple of quick things. One, I have never met any of the individuals that are involved with this trial. I have not psychologically evaluated them, nor am I giving them an evaluation today. I'm providing opinions based on observations I'm making on publicly available information. These are just my opinions. This is just how I see it. So if I say Johnny Depp feels this way, or he looks this way, or he says this, that is my opinion based on what I believe I am observing. And I'm not insisting that anybody take what I'm saying as fact. I do want to remind you, though, to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. So in this video, we are going to be observing Johnny Depp's behavior in two segments, basically. First, we're going to be looking at the beginning of his testimony. And second, we're going to be looking at him during testimony that is a little bit more challenging. We're going to see him getting pushed a little bit more and see how his behavior changes. All right, let's get started.
Can you please tell the jury why you're here today?
Yes. About 6 years ago.
So in a very short amount of time, we've already seen several emotions that I'm getting ready to point out. But before I do that, I want to explain the complexities of trying to analyze something like this with someone who's a professional actor. The goal of an actor is to evoke certain emotions in you. And that's exactly what he's going to need to do during this trial, is to evoke certain emotions in you. So his thoughts, feelings, facial expressions are probably going to be centered around what he wants to evoke in the audience watching him, whether that's the jury or the people at home. Because from my understanding, assuming that what I read is correct, he's the one that actually wanted cameras in the courtroom. So it's very possible that there's going to be some performance in all of this. Let's go back and I'll show you the emotions I'm already observing.
Yes.
So a look of concentration. He's squinting his eyes. Typically we do that when we think about things that we don't like. He raises eyebrows for a second, which is a way to bring attention to your face. It's sometimes denotes surprise, but this seems more likely a desire to get people to look at what he's saying right now. And there is a look of sadness. Now, it's very possible that he's feeling all of these things in rapid succession. It's also possible that it's a bit of a performance. We're going to keep watching to see how he uses his facial expression while he talks.
About 6 years ago, Ms. Heard made some quite heinous and disturbing, brought these disturbing criminal...
So as you can see, there's the sad eyes again. Okay, one of the reasons I'm pointing this out, because we're going to see them a lot. The goal of analyzing body language is to really see what happens involuntarily, because the brain and the body are connected. When we feel something, we show it. Oftentimes it's natural, but as someone who's an actor, he's used to having to do this on demand. And what we're seeing a lot of is sadness. However, I'm going to point out why that's a bit of an issue as we keep going. I'm just going to let it play for now.
Acts against me that were not based in...
There's the sad eyes again. You'll also notice that the way he speaks is very, very measured. Rather than just speaking, he's really taking his time. I think trying to make sure that people are able to hear everything he says, think about everything he says. He's being a bit contemplative, even though we're just starting this trial. And maybe that's just the way that he communicates. It certainly seems that through the rest of the trial, he has a similar style of communication. Whether or not that's intentional or that that's just how he processes things, I'm not sure. But it does feel very slow and deliberate.
Any species of truth. It was a complete shock that it would...
So here's another part that to me seems performative. You'll see him say shock and then like do this with his mouth. And that's not really a natural motion to do with your mouth. So that probably is the actor in him coming out as he's talking about this. This is what I'm talking about right here.
Complete shock.
Because it doesn't look like a smile per se, but maybe that's what he's trying to get across. It looks like a way that he's performing a style of speech. It's a little unusual, actually.
That it just didn't need to go in that direction, as nothing of the kind had ever happened, though.
It's interesting. He said nothing of the kind, furrowed his brow.
Nothing of the kind.
So that does suggest some degree of possible irritation, and which would make sense if somebody is saying that nothing of the kind ever happened, or it could be evoking feelings he had when something was happening. It's hard to say at this point because we're still just getting a baseline, but I'm trying to help you understand the emotions we're seeing and also the emotions that he may want you to see, because that's his job.
It ever happened, though the relationship, there were arguments.
So here's the sad eyes again, and here's why I'm pointing that out, is that typically we see flashes of emotion when somebody feels it. We see it briefly. He is sustaining this look, and maybe that's just how he looks when he talks. I've seen him talk in interviews, and he does this sometimes. It's also possible that because he's alleging that he's a victim in this case, he wants people to feel that he is sad. He wants to evoke that emotion in people. He wants to look sympathetic. Because if someone is sad, it is far more sympathetic than if someone is angry or someone is agitated. So I think that he tends to maintain this look because that may be what he wants to portray to people. Or maybe it's just very natural. But I will say, I typically don't see people maintain this expression for as long as he does or do it as much as he does, given the context of everything.
And things of that nature, but never.
Now we're going to watch a different part from the trial. Anyway, let's just jump right in.
Question. Well, putting it bluntly, if you wanted illegal drugs, controlled drugs, and you asked one of your staff, and I am not going to name anybody particularly right now, that member of staff would provide you with those drugs if he could. Answer. At times, yes. Question. Despite the fact that it was illegal? Answer. Yes. Did I read that right?
You did.
In this part, we're seeing something a little bit different from Johnny Depp. We're seeing how he acts towards somebody that's agitating him. Look, I get it. Attorneys can be difficult when you're on the stand. Trust me, I know that you can get very frustrated. So I'm not faulting him for being a bit snide, but I do want you to understand this is how he handles this kind of pressure. So the way that I took this is that when he said, did I read that correctly? He's saying yes and smiling as though, yes, you can read. And so he's distracting from really the content of what he's talking about, which is that people are buying drugs for him. Let's go back and watch this, and then we'll keep going.
Legal? Answer. Yes. Did I read that right?
You did.
You've seen this picture before, Mr. Depp, right?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
One of the things he's doing is he's smiling while looking at this picture. So for a jury or for people at home, you're going to go, hey, he's taking this in stride. This is no big deal. See, he's smiling while he's looking at it. A very smart way to make people feel like the point that's being made is inconsequential, that it's not really a big deal.
And this is a picture that was taken in Miss Heard's former house or apartment on Orange Avenue after you two began dating, correct?
Yes, sir, and it's quite a composition. Composition of the photograph is very interesting.
I think that's something we can agree on.
So there he goes, using charm again to distract from the reality of that they're talking about him using heavy substances.
But that was the whiskey that's on the table was an average. Every day I would come home to her place and there would be a glass of whiskey waiting for me.
So there's way of displacing blame of why he'd fallen off the wagon. There was whiskey waiting for me. So he's implying that Amber Heard was not allowing him to be sober. And maybe that's true, but that's what he's trying to get across, not accepting any responsibility for this behavior, saying there was a glass of whiskey waiting for me. Let's listen to him say that again.
Table was an average. Every day I would come home to her place and there would be a glass of whiskey waiting for me.
And you would sometimes drink whiskey in the mornings too, right? During this time period. Isn't happy hour any time?
You could hear the attorney, like, as in, trying to acknowledge that he's trying to be easy to get along with. He's trying to be funny. He's trying to not really answer the question directly, rather than saying, yes, I drink in the morning sometimes. And you could see him shaking his head. It seemed like he wanted to deny that. So responding like this really dismisses the seriousness of the question. And it's effective. There are a lot of people that would watch this and think that he's funny because he's not on trial for a DUI or something like that. So people don't feel like that this is probably is of as much consequence as some of the other things talked about in the trial. Let's watch him say that again, and then we'll keep going.
Period.
Isn't happy hour anytime?
And that cocaine, those white lines, those are cocaine. That's cocaine, right?
I would assume. It
Yeah,
looks
and
like
that's your cocaine that you kept in that box that says property of JD with the skull and crossbones, isn't it?
Well, the beautiful composition of the photograph would suggest that, certainly.
All right, so I want you to think about this. They're trying to establish something very simple about cocaine use, about alcohol use, and it's getting dragged out. And he's using a lot of flowery, expressive language in order to get people endeared to him, in order for people, you hear there are people that were actually laughing in the courtroom. And so this is, once again, it's taking something that could otherwise be a bad look and making people focus on the way that he's behaving. Look how funny he's being. Look at what he's saying. And so it minimizes the possibility that later on people will take what's being said about him as seriously.
Yeah. You don't dispute that.
I don't see me in it.
No. But you don't dispute that you carried cocaine in that box that said property of JD. That was a special box that you carried cocaine in, wasn't it?
The box was a gift from someone. I can't say that I carried cocaine in it, no.
You can't say that you carried cocaine in that box?
No, but it looks like it would fit some cocaine.
See, and I hate to keep repeating this, but he's so good at doing this. I'm going to show you the facial expressions he was making, but obviously people are suggesting he kept cocaine in the box. He's not being very direct about whether or not he did. He's talking about how it was a gift. Now he's talking about how it could fit cocaine. He's really good at turning simple questions into jokes, into something funny. And he smiles when he says this because he wants people to know, hey, it's okay to laugh. It's okay to think that what I'm doing is funny right now. Watch this part again.
I can't say that I carried cocaine in it, no.
You can't say that you carried cocaine in that box?
No, but it looks like it would fit some cocaine.
I'm surprised once again that the courtroom is allowed to have this much laughter. Maybe it's just different in civil cases like this. But in criminal cases, there typically is not going to be this much chatter and this much laughter allowed.
Cocaine is, in my experience, normally given in plastic bags. When you put it in a box like that, chances are very good you'll leave a trail of a long line of cocaine behind.
So now he's turning the question into a cartoon. So obviously, if he's saying that if people would give you cocaine in a bag, obviously people would put the bag in the box. But now he's acting as though they're saying that somebody's putting cocaine directly in the box so that he can make a joke about somebody walking with a box and a long line of cocaine trailing behind it. So once again, he's just masterful at trivializing this and making all of this seem so silly and inconsequential. Why would you ask me these questions? And then turning it into something funny. And I think it worked, really, because I think people did find him funny and charming, and that this was what a funny performance he gave during his trial.
Behind you,
Okay.
walking down the street. So,
Why don't you go ahead and pull up your UK testimony, please? Let's look at page 202.
I'm having trouble finding 202.
Are you saying page 9
Oh,
because there's no 202?
that's my fault. It's
All right. So before this interaction, I want you to understand, he left a page out that he was supposed to look at, or somehow Johnny Depp does not have what he wants him to examine. So just keep that in mind.
day 2, so I owe you another transcript. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Oh,
So now we're seeing a very interesting interaction. So Johnny Depp has been making jokes of everything so far. But now the attorney made a mistake. They meant to include a page. They did not. Now, I get it's easy to feel annoyed at attorneys that are on the opposing side from you. I've been there myself. It's not fun. So it's not that I expect Johnny Depp to be all nice and kind just because the attorney forgot something. However, you'll see that the interactions are very different when the roles are reversed. So Johnny Depp answers a question, the attorney kind of laughs it off, just keeps going. Watch Johnny Depp's expression as he now has the upper hand on this attorney because the attorney forgot something.
Well,
Are you saying page 9
Oh,
because there's no two?
that's my fault. It's day 2, so I owe you another transcript. I'm sorry. My apologies.
oh,
We're moving into another day now. Your Honor, permission to approach?
Okay, yes, sir.
A very stern and serious look. No more smiles, no more jokes. And I get that, he's dealing with an attorney that he probably doesn't want to get along with. I do understand that fact, but it does show how he handles people very differently and how he can go very quickly between smiles, jokes, and laughing to very stern, clearing his throat, what I would interpret as passive-aggressive behavior. Let's watch this one more time, and then I'll let it keep going.
That's my fault. It's day 2, so I owe you another transcript. I'm sorry. My apologies.
oh,
We're moving into another day now. Your Honor, permission to approach?
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you.
thank you.
So this, and I apologize for that, Mr. Depp. This is
See, and he says, I apologize for that, Mr. Depp. No polite interaction, not that there has to be, but I just want to contrast the fact that he's not all exactly smiles and jokes all the time. That once he has the upper hand, he's not going to cut anybody any quarter.
question. Do you remember it now? Answer, yes. I did not remember the property of JD. Yes, that is a box. It was carrying cocaine in it. I would say I probably was then. You see that? Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
See, once again, did I read that right? Yes, you did. He's trying to talk to the attorney like he's an idiot. And once again, he wants people to take this as an endearing point. Rather than people focusing on what was said, he's focusing on how funny he thinks it is the attorney can read.
You see that? Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And if you look at the corner of his mouth right here, we oftentimes associate that with contempt. Typically, when people feel contempt, that is the only emotion that shows on just one side of the face. So whether or not he's feeling that, it's hard to say, but that's certainly what it appears to be right now. All right, so there's so much that we could get into from the testimony, but I thought this would give you some snapshots, some ideas of the different contrasts and behaviors that he shows. So I hope this video helps you better understand how I approach and how I observe somebody's behavior like Johnny Depp. I can see how he comes across as charming and funny and how he makes jokes and how, in a lot of ways, he's very likable on the stand. I get how people like him and that they want to be on his side because in a case like this, you feel like you've got to choose sides. At least I think that's how most people approached it. It certainly seemed like for many people, there were good guys and there were bad guys in this trial. And maybe it's not so simple. What we're going to do in the next video is I'm going to be talking pretty extensively about the psychologists and my opinion of the facts that they present. It's pretty complicated. I'm trying my best to distill it down into something that makes sense and is not an hour long, but we'll see how all that goes. I'm including this psychologist on the video with Amber Heard because it's very, very relevant to how people are going to interpret Amber Heard. What they have to say about her is going to change the lens that people see her behavior through. And I'll be releasing that video soon. And if you want to see that video or more content just like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, thanks for watching.